Good morning, folks. It's just a couple minutes after 4 a.m. GMT time on July 13th. I'm going to take a look at Forex. I'll start off by saying that until we get some more clarity with the Greek situation, or at least we get a move that we can work with from news around that event, most of the pairs I'm going to be staying away from. More than likely, I'm going to be not trading the whole week, probably. There are a couple pairs which are going to be less related and maybe okay to trade, but we could see big moves across the entire basket again this week, or all the baskets really, across all Forex. So we'll see what happens there. We haven't really seen any major moves, but of course we haven't had any solid direction from news releases. So we'll take a look at technicals, but definitely use caution. Look to get in and out of trades quickly. So we'll start with pound CAD, and here I kind of like more towards the bottom of the zone. We have the 55 in here, and we've got a super convergence zone forming. It's potentially we do have a trade in this area. But we don't have a whole lot of established support and resistance here, and we really only be looking to trade back up to the top of the range because this is going to be a good resistance level, and then we've got WR1 just above there. So we really be looking for breakout and then a pullback to long. So really, I'd like to see price come back to the 4-hour Dynafibs, and you can see that the midterm fib, and we have WS1 there. It's definitely better horizontal support and resistance. And you can see that the 55 has been playing less of a role here. And if we look back a little bit, you can see that it was converged with the Dynafibs, and of course the Dynafibs and the 200 are going to be more significant there. So I'm looking for a pullback down to about 1.950 and bounce off of that area. And of course, this is we're probably just going to be stuck in a range. We're probably going to be stuck in a range on most pairs, just because of waiting for some kind of deal or default with the Greeks. All right, pound odd, we've got basically the same thing. You can see where on the daily we had a break here, pulled back, formed support, and we had a subsequent move here. So this is what I fibbed from the daily chart rather than the 4-hour, even though the 4-hour fits our rules to fib just last week. The areas that kind of correspond to the fib of just last week are not as strong to me. It would be right around here would be our 50% fib, which could turn out to be a support area. We could find support there, but it's not well established yet. So I have a couple trend lines here. The more conservative trend line being this lower one from kind of where this long wick is the failure to break lower, or we can place the trend line from the bottom of the wick. It's a little subjective because in both cases we have pretty good touches. So I'll have both of them on the chart for right now until one of them becomes more well established. So if we take a look at the 4-hour, you can see that in the scope of kind of our support and resistance in both cases, it's not going to affect this. Here, both of them are valid. So we have kind of our first support area is here, which is going to be right around 61.8 fib from that daily fib. You can see if we just fib the weekly, that would be the bottom of our fib there. So basically, same thing as with the CAD. We're establishing a range here, and you can see that does give us the crux of our more aggressive trend line. So I'll be looking for a bounce off that area to trade back up to the top of the range. All right, pound yen. We're going to take a look at a couple fibs here. You can see that on the 4 hour we're short, although we only closed down a little bit, and on the daily we're long, just according to our general indication here. But if we look, we can see that we almost got a trend line here, although the touches aren't great, and on the 4 hour it doesn't look clean. It's not good. So I don't have it on there, but it's potentially forming around in that area, and we're sitting right at it now. But we have other items that kind of make that trend line unnecessary. So if we fib kind of the entire last move on the uptrend here, you can see that this whole move down, basically, in this, the big candle, the end of last week, or the middle of last week, we hit basically a 50% fib is where we stopped and turned around at. You can see that that's also a good resistance area or support area now, and it's fairly close to the daily 200. So if we take a look at the 4 hour, we can see we have a fib on the 4 hour. This is last fib of the most recent high. So this would be the top of our fib from the daily chart down to last week's low. And we're right in between the 4 hour 200, which we found resistance at, and the daily 55. So potentially we have, if we stay below the 4 hour 200, we can look for a short from here, perhaps move back up, and then a rejection that clears the daily 55. Or we may start out with a move down to push and break, and then a pullback, and then a short there. And here you can see that we're getting pretty close where the bottom was. It's the daily 200 coming up. So potentially we have two moves here that we can look for. A move down from this area, whether that be a rejection of the 4 hour 200 or a break and pullback of the daily 55 to trade down to the daily 200. We also have the bounce trade from the daily 200, which corresponds with right around 50% fib from our fib on the daily, the overall trend. So we can trade bounces off that area as well. Pound USD, we're in kind of a similar boat, but the areas don't look as nice. So we've got the two daily EMAs, and then we've got the 4 hour 200 that we're kind of wedged between. And I've got a fib. This is from the daily from last month's low to high, just to kind of illustrate the fact that we kind of top and bottom this with the 50% and 61.8% fibs from the last major move. So you can see that, at least right now, we're kind of, we don't really know which direction we're going in at this point. So if we take a look at this from the daily, flip this, we could flip it this way. And then if we take a look at the 4 hour, we have a 50% fib, and it's a little bit of a support and resistance area, and of course it's 50% of the down move. So basically all that to say that we're not getting a clear direction here. We basically need to move away from this area above 56,250, or have a very solid break down and then move back up to anywhere in this area and move down. The problem with this is the recent low here at 53.51, or just below there, the recent low. So really not looking great. Definitely not clear, and probably other pairs probably steer clear of this pair. And it's not not surprising given the current state of news. All right, Euro Yen on the daily. We have some nice defined areas here. Nice bottom. We got a nice middle here. And nice top. The problem is we're not anywhere near the bottom or the top, and in between the intermediary looks pretty messy. We have all this mess right here. And if we break it all to the downside and pull back into it and then get some momentum to short, we don't have very far before we hit that bottom. Let's see, so the entry would be down in here somewhere most likely. Gives us 180 pips, but we of course potentially pull back anywhere in this area before continuing to move down, and that's even after rejection, so your stop would have to be pretty large as well. Of course, shorter time frame confirmation, we could hide the stop a little bit shorter, but it doesn't look too good. Basically need break above 37.50 and pull back for that hold, and then move back up, and we can trade it up to 40.60 basically. So that gives us a better RR, about 260 pips to work with there, so that larger stop would still give us a decent RR ratio. Of course, very short term, we can definitely trade move below 135.50, a pullback, and a short entry from like a 15-minute or 5-minute. It's just going to be tough with the way markets have been moving recently. All right, odd yen, definitely looking a lot better than most of the other pairs. We broke 93 a couple weeks ago towards the end of the week, and then we broke 91.50, had a nice pullback to it, and moved down lower, and we've pulled back kind of to that area. We haven't been able to stay above 91.50, and we do have the 4-hour 55 coming down and starting to level off a little bit now as price kind of stagnates in this area. But basically, we did gap again, and we've pulled back, and we're right in the middle, basically, pretty much where we closed last week. So look for maybe a little bit more of a move up, and then for price to fail to retake 91.50 or to get above the 4-hour 55, and eventual failure, and we look to take that short back down to 89. All right, on USD, this would be kind of the standard fib following the rule set, but it really doesn't look all that nice because we pretty much just in this area have consolidation. There's no real good short-term trend line right there. We're kind of just moving up and down through this area where our 50% fib would be the middle of that point. So if we go back and we go from the high of last week, this looks a lot better. You can see that this is kind of consolidation between our low and the 38.2 as momentum dries up. So I have to wait for a reaction there. And you can see that we've got just a little bit of support and resistance in here, which is where our WR1 is. It's also right around 75, just a little bit above. So that area makes more sense. We could potentially see a short-term trade from the 38.2% fib, which is going to also be 4-hour 55 and WR1. But our bigger area is up here around 75.50. That was kind of the major breakout. We didn't get a good pullback to there. We broke it. We did break 75. So potentially a pullback anywhere in this area, and then a short. All right, New Zealand dollar versus U.S. dollar. Again, this is a fib of the last 2 weeks to fib the daily here since we closed up last week. If we fib the daily, that's a very large pullback. We've been in a pretty consistent downtrend on this pair, and given the circumstances, I don't think we'll see that big of a pullback. Now, given what could happen with the Greek news, we could see a very large pullback. Although this would be one of the less effective pairs, but the daily fibbing from the daily would put us up looking for a pullback up into this area. So I'll fib the last 2 weeks, and you can see that this gives us a decent short-term support and resistance level right at our 50% fib, about 67.50. So that kind of makes sense. We've got the 4-hour 55 is leveled off where price is consolidating. Again, momentum's drying up. So where the 4-hour 55 had been in control, where we've the range has been drying up and consolidating, we're probably going to look for a pullback more into the Dynafibs. So that's kind of our intermediary between the daily 200 and the 55. So that will give us usually a good area to look for when we do have the 55 start to flatten off. And you can see that it coincides nicely with the support and resistance area here. Look to trade that back down to the low, where you see we have a pretty strong super convergence zone forming that's still getting stronger this week so far. All right, so basically pressure into here, failure, and short. All right, USD versus the CAD. We don't have a whole lot to work with from this pair. We do have some convergences coming, but of course we didn't move too far up. It's not well established, so we could end up pulling back down here. Wouldn't surprise me at all. But potentially on the shorter term, if we kind of meander down and then we get some nice momentum to the upside, it could provide us a trade. You can see 61.8% fib, potential support and resistance forming. We do have the 4-hour 55 coming up, MR1, super convergence zones in the area. So that gives us a decent reason to look for a trade from there, although potentially a little bit higher risk because the bigger overall area would be to look for a pullback down closer to 124.50, which has the 4-hour 200 daily 55, or even down to 124 is the big area. Definitely, I would look for a long from there. All right, US yen, another yen pair where it's kind of, we moved up really far pretty quickly. Of course, this isn't even, we had another move that was similar to this. And so it's, kind of was this a pullback and now we're moving up? Probably pretty likely, but potentially we can come down again first before we kind of break back up and push back up towards 125. So we do have a couple of trend lines from the daily. Both of these have 3-point touches. It just depends on which preference you want. If we look here at the 4-hour, you can see this is our top on the daily. This was the first line I drew from the daily. And you can see here where it has nice touches with the body of the candles, and we have little wicks indicating a testing of the trend line. So I definitely look for, you can see we're sitting on it right now. So if we get some nice momentum away from it to the downside and break below the daily 55, you can definitely look to take a short from there down to 120 or the low 120.30, potentially down to 120. Here we have 122, which is forming a pretty strong super convergence zone. So we definitely have to be careful there. If we get the breakout and our entry signal is too close to there, you probably don't want to take a trade into that area. We're going to break it first and potentially come back above it and then short. And that, maybe won't give us as good of an RR as if we had taken it into the face of 121. But you can see that has been support and resistance, so it's definitely better confirmation. To the upside, of course, I want to look for the higher trend line to break, and that's probably going to be along with pressure into a 123.50, and then a pullback into this area with the EMAs, and then along more conservatively is going to be a break above 123.50, a pullback, and then along. So this is Euro USD. Euro USD is a mess. I'm not even going to bother to try and identify areas to trade off of here, because we're going to need substantial moves in either direction and pullback, and then a confirmation that we're kind of breaking out of this kind of consolidation here. We do have kind of bottom, of course, that potentially you could trade from, but of course this is going to be a pair that is, going to have high impact given Greek news potentially. So it doesn't interest me at all. I don't see any areas that are really safe trades, especially not given the state of the Eurozone currently. All right, folks. Well, of course, be careful if you're, you don't like risk, you're risk adverse and want to take the conservative trades. Definitely, probably a good week to take off.